The summer sun hung low over Willow Grove, casting golden streaks across the manicured lawns and pastel houses of our suburban neighborhood. It was the kind of place where every mailbox matched, every hedge was trimmed to perfection, and the air smelled faintly of fresh-cut grass and unspoken rules. 3 months ago, my mother, Clara Bennett, and I had moved here after my father's sudden death, a heart attack that left us reeling and searching for a fresh start. Clara, a soft-spoken woman who'd spent decades teaching preschool, wanted peace. I, at 28, just wanted to keep her steady. But peace, it turned out, was the last thing Willow Grove had in store for us. It started with Margaret Voss, the HOA president, a woman who wielded her authority like a scepter. She showed up at our door the day after we unpacked, her platinum hair pulled tight into a bun, her navy blazer crisp despite the July heat. In her hand was a leather-bound notebook, its edges worn from obsessive use. "Welcome to Willow Grove," she said, her voice flat, her eyes scanning our porch like a hawk. "Your front door is 2 shades too red. Regulation is cherry blossom. Yours is closer to crimson fury. Fix it by Monday." Clara, ever the peacemaker, smiled and offered her a slice of our takeout pizza. Margaret's lip curled as if the grease might leap onto her pristine outfit. "I don't fraternize," she said. "You'll find the rules in the welcome packet. Follow them." That was our introduction to Margaret's reign. Over the next few months, she became our shadow-issuing citations for a trash can left out an hour past pickup, a wind chime that disrupted the auditory aesthetic, even a single dandelion daring to sprout in our yard. Clara, whose asthma had worsened since Dad's passing, took it in stride. She baked Margaret cookies, invited her to tea, even volunteered to repaint the community gazebo. Margaret responded by doubling down, her inspections growing more frequent, her fines more absurd. What pushed her over the edge, though, was Percy, the garden gnome my father had given Clara for their 20th anniversary. A chubby little fisherman with a chipped hat, he sat by our front steps, his painted grin a quiet rebellion against Margaret's sterile VY shown. "It's garish," she snapped during one of her unannounced VY sits. "Remove it, or I'll escalate this to the board." Clara, clutching the HOA handbook, stood her ground. "The rules allow tasteful lawn ornaments," she said, her voice trembling slightly not from fear, but from the strain of her tightening chest. I saw the warning signs, the shallow breaths, the faint wheeze. At 61, her asthma, once a minor nuisance, had become a constant companion. Margaret didn't care. "Taste is subjective," she retorted, "and I decide what's acceptable here." The real storm broke at the Willow Grove annual picnic. Margaret had scheduled an emergency HOA meeting beforehand, her voice booming through the clubhouse microphone as we arrived. "Certain residents," she said, her gaze locking on us, "are dragging down our property values with their disregard for standards." A PowerPoint slide flashed a poorhouse. Percy circled in glaring red. "This tacky nonsense is why buyers hesitate." Clara stood, her hands shaking. "Margaret, this isn't the place." That gnome was a gift from my late husband. The room shifted uncomfortably, but Margaret smirked. "Your sentimentality isn't my problem. Remove it or pay the price." That's what happened. Clara's breathing hitched, a sharp rasp cutting through the murmurs. She fumbled for her inhaler, her lifeline, but before she could use it, Margaret stormed over and snatched it from her hand. "You're disrupting my meeting," she hissed. "This tantrum ends now." Gasps rippled through the crowd as Clara's face paled, her knees buckling. I lunged forward, shouting, "She needs that to breathe." Margaret's cronies, too, board members who trailed her like loyal dogs, blocked my path. "She needs to learn respect," Margaret said, dropping the inhaler into her sleek handbag. Clara collapsed, and I barely caught her before she hit the floor. Someone dialed 911 as I cradled her, her lips tinting blue. "Hang on, Mom," I whisper, my voice cracking. Margaret turned on her heel, dismissing the chaos with a wave. Meeting adjourned. By the time the ambulance screeched into the lot, red and blue lights piercing the dusk, she was gone. At the hospital, Dr. Nguyen, a wiry man with steady hands, told me Clara had suffered a severe asthma attack. If she'd been delayed any longer. He didn't finish, but the weight of it hung between us. She was stable now, hooked to oxygen, but they'd keep her overnight. When I stepped into her room, she looked frail yet oddly alert. "Did you bring my secure phone?" she asked, her voice hoarse but firm. I blinked. "Your what?" "The one in my nightstand's locked drawer." "Get it." No police, yet just the phone. Confused, I drove home through a sudden downpour, the wipers slapping rhythmically against my rising panic. Taped to our door was a soggy HOA notice due La 600 for public disturbance, signed by Margaret. Inside, I found the key where Clara said, hidden in her old copy of Saw to Kill a Mockingbird Saw. The drawer held a sleek black phone and a notebook scribbled with numbers and cryptic shorthand. Back at the hospital, Clara locked the door behind me and took the phone, her fingers flying over the keys. "Agent Laura Mitchell, code Bravo, Tango 92. I need Director Hayes. Urgent." I stared as my mother-me cardigan-wearing, cookie-baking mother transformed. "Sir, my cover's at risk," she said into the phone. The subject escalated to physical endangerment. She took my inhalerates, got the tracker. "No, my identity's intact, but we need to move fast." She hung up and met my stunned gaze. "I'm not just a retired preschool teacher, Sam. I've been with the FBI for 32 years, financial crimes. That inhaler Margaret stole? It's a recording to VYC. She's been laundering money through the HOA, and I've been building the case." The room tilted. "You're serious?" I touched the badge. She pulled from her gown a real, cold metal FBI badge. "Your father knew," she said softly. "He was my handler until he retired. We fell in love on the job. His consulting gigs? Cover for supporting me." My mind raced to Dad's late-night calls, his vague explanations. "The asthma's real," she added, "but I've played it up. Makes me less suspicious." A knock interrupted us. Two agents, Reese, a sharp-eyed woman, and Carter, a lanky guy with glasses, entered. "Agent Mitchell," Reese said, "we've got chatter. Margaret's called a board meeting tomorrow to push your fines. The quarterly dues just came in. She'll move the money then." Clara nodded. "Perfect. Sam, go home, act normal, attend the meeting. Record everything. We'll have backup nearby." I gaped. "You want me to play spy?" She smiled, a glint in her eye. "You're tougher than you think." The next morning, I sat in the Pack Community Center, my phone discreetly recording. Margaret presided like a queen, Clara's inhaler displayed on the table like a trophy. "The Bennetts have racked up 19 violations," she declared, projecting photos of our offenses. Percy, a slightly crooked shutter, even Clara's potted basil. Yesterday, Laura faked a medical episode to derail my authority. I clenched my fists as neighbors shifted uneasily. Then Clara entered, leaning on a cane, her frailty a perfect mask. "You took my medication," she rasped. "I nearly died." Margaret scoffed. "A prop for sympathy. If you were sick, you'd have stayed in the hospital." Clara straightened, dropping the cane, and held up her badge. "I did. And now, Margaret Voss, you're under federal investigation." The room erupted as Reese and Carter stormed in. "Agent Laura Mitchell has been tracking your financial crimes," Reese announced. "That inhaler? It's recorded every word, your threats, your boasts about skimming dues for your lake house." Margaret's face twisted. "This is a lie." Clara's voice cut through. "We've got bank records due law 300,000 funneled to your accounts. And yesterday, you admitted to endangering a federal agent." Margaret lunged for the inhaler, but Carter intercepted. Neighbors began shouting fines for late fees, threats over minor infractions. Tasha, a single mom, stood. "They fined me due la 1,500 when my roof leaked during chemo." "Is that your standards?" Margaret shrieked. "You'll ruin everything I've built." But Clara projected damning EVY DENSA transfers to shell companies, forged reports. As agents cuffed Margaret and her board, she spat. "My brother's a judge." "You're finished." Clara didn't flinch. "He's been notified. He's recusing himself." Outside, the crowd buzzed. Clara turned to me. "I kept you in the dark to protect you. This was supposed to be small-time fraud, not this. Before I could respond, her phone rang. Her face hardened. They found something in the basement. We raced back, descending into a damp, cluttered space. Behind a false wall was a hidden room file stacked high, computers whirring, a printing press churning out IDs. Identity theft, Clara muttered, flipping through passports with our neighbors' faces, but fake names. They've been selling identities to criminals, using HOA events to harvest photos. An agent called out, transactions linked to syndicates in 9 countries. My stomach sank. Percy's camera, I said. It caught her sneaking in here. Clara grinned. Why do you think I suggested it? Margaret's arrest was just the start. She'd been a cog in a vast machine, managing 50 such communities. That night, Clara packed us up. They know who I am now. We're going to a safe house. Agent Michaels arrived, urgent. We've got Chatterthy coming for you. We left in an unmarked car, my old life shrinking in the rear VYEW. 6 months later, we returned. Margaret and her crew were behind bars, their network gutted, though the masterminds remained at large. Willow Grove threw us a welcome-back party, Tasha now leading a kinder HOA. Clara, finally retiring, laughed over burgers. No more chasing crooks. Just me and my real inhaler. Percy stood guard by our door, his camera retired, but his grin intact, a symbol of the chaos we'd serve VY Ved and the strength I'd never known my mother possessed. If you were the one in this story, how would you react? Would you stand up and fight back, or accept the unreasonable pressure and control from the HOA? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this VY Deo with more people. Your small action gives us the motivation to keep bringing you more intense and engaging stories. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next VY Deo.